Compliments of the season one more time. This 27th day in the month of December 2022. I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Well, while we celebrate, we must not take our eyes off the ball, which is the fact that the 2023 elections train is most certainly on the move, and perhaps the bus stop we're all at now. Please forget the coaches in which the politicians are. The bus stop where we are at now is one in which you have to collect your own PVCs. Every single one of us have that role to play, and it is clear right there, even in the Constitution, what our own civic responsibilities are. Well, how successful has that been for you? You may want to tell us, you may want to share with us your own thoughts, your experience in getting your own PVCs. And it's not something that is just happening in Lagos. I know mine. And one thing is I love to respect myself and respect whatever the authority is. Even if the person is just a gate man and he tells me I can't go into a gate, I will stay. Because I don't want, any untoward thing to happen with me. And I believe that should be the experience of every Nigerian as well. Because when I went to my local government to get my own PVC, the officials there said to me, I think I went sometime in the teens of this month. I left the office and just got home, changed and went there. And what I was told was, when they looked at my slip, I guess there's a code that tells them I'm a newbie. And it tells me, come back after Christmas. Well, it's after Christmas, so any day from now, I can go besiege the INEC office to get my PVCs. But it's not the same experience all across board. On Saturday, where we were having sunrise, my colleague Alero Edu said, the experience they had getting their PVCs was such that perhaps the INEC officials were not expecting so many people to besiege the office at the time, because said that there were so many, but the canopies and chairs prepared for the crowd was something that could take maybe about 20, 30 people tops. And there were so many, they were up to between 50 and 80 or thereabouts. So people were just milling around, just standing around and all of that. I don't know if that's the experience of several other people. I recall the assurance you gave us in your chance meeting with the INEC boss in Lagos. You may want to speak to us about that one as well. Again, just so people can know. But the responsibility of getting that done for Nigerians stares us in the face. And while Nigerians, some are happy that they've collected, there is in some, of course, the dailies, one of the dailies is going to come to you with one headline this morning. I won't tell you which yet. Ease and frustration as Nigerians queue for PVCs, and the stories came from all over the nation. So perhaps INEC would do Nigerians a world of good. Speak to us about exactly why there's such queues and this kind of experience that people are having collecting their PVCs. I mean, I don't know, but let's have your own experiences as well.
Well, my assurance didn't quite cover the availability of INEC staff because the rec for the commission in Lagos only said, well, PVCs will be ready for collection in Lagos. And your experience, the experience of Mama Leredu quite confirms, that the PVCs are now available. But what Nigerians are going through is what's unwholesome. We can see this is not Lagos. This is somewhere in the north. And, it just confirms what Nigerians are experiencing in Lagos. See citizens milling around, waiting in discomfort. This looks like they're going to be standing for hours before they can get their PVCs. Now, I am convinced that the Commission is aware that this is the best time for Nigerians to collect their PVCs because they're on holidays. There's no work at this time. Well, a good number of Nigerians will not be, going for their 9 to 5. So the holidays are on. This should have been the best time for INEC to, make adequate preparation for this, for some staff, support staff, auxiliary staff as well, to help the process, fasten the process. Now, besides what we do here as our own contribution to create awareness for PVC collection, I doubt that the same is coming from the Commission. Nigerians getting emails, stating that they can come for their PVCs. Are there any campaigns on the media from the Commission? And I believe that, the broadcast media makes it abundantly clear that there can be some form of partnership, between the Commission and, and them, such that they can promote awareness on the availability of the PVCs now. Young Africa is doing something on the 2023 elections that goes on channels, television, Elections 101, how citizens should conduct themselves, what the ballot papers should look like, how voting would go on. INEC should also live up to the task, the very crucial task of this time, to not just make the PVC available, not just, announce, by proxy, but to make staff available, to make the process easy for Nigerians to be able to collect their PVCs. Well, that's on the part of INEC. Now for the citizens, regardless of the difficulty, I'd like you to compare what Christmas was like for you this year with what you would like it to be next year, 2023. So make the sacrifice, arrive there early so that you can get your PVCs and, bring about the desired change that you would want to see in 2023, and of course leave for your offsprings. We can't say it enough about how important it is for you to get your PVCs and exercise your franchise in 2023.
One other thing that we can just add to top that before we transit to the next phase of this program is that we are not unaware of the challenges INEC has faced in recent time and the distractions those activities of arson could have caused for INEC to get some things done. Nigerians are not unaware. Nigerians are sympathetic. That I believe with all my heart. However, it's just clear. INEC's job is cut out for it. No matter what the situation is or circumstances, eyes on the ball. So we do not miss the goal at the end of the day. We, the people, are most certainly willing to cooperate with INEC the best way we can. The question is, what does INEC expect of Nigerians? INEC has been appealing for Nigerians to go out and collect their PVCs. From today, it's 5 days short of 1 month to the expiration of the time that INEC has given. Until January 22, INEC has said. And one of the reports says that INEC says all PVCs will be available and ready for collection latest by January 6. Now, that is from INEC. We'd like to know what the experiences of people have been in getting their PVCs. I can say this, and I know that it's the experience of a good number of people. Those who have come out to collect their PVCs and have collected their PVCs are ecstatic about that fact. It is not also lost on many that even after collecting the PVCs, the function that the PVC is going to collect may not only be for voting. Some are just collecting it for other activities. That's okay. However, get your PVCs. Then we will get to the point of appealing to people to make sure that they decide that it's time for them to choose their leader. Because, as we mentioned yesterday, not voting is a vote.
Indeed.
Let's flip to the next phase of this conversation now with a look at the papers after now. Let's begin with the Guardian newspaper this morning, and it is like we compared notes. 2023 ease frustration as Nigerians queue for PVCs. And that's pretty much it. Some people find it easy. Some people are frustrated with the process. And perhaps it's also a good time for us to tinker with the process. I mean, you spoke the other time about, INEC officials doing the needful, ad hoc stuff and all. Don't forget, well, we can't, that's not without prejudice to the fact that PVCs are sensitive materials as well. So, in the wrong hands, it is definitely a bullet. So, well, that is right there on the front page of the paper. And look at the riders. INEC upbeat on exercise. Voters demand improved modalities. Residents disagree over allegations of sharp practices. Wow. I can't even imagine the possibility of that.
Demanding ease of the process. But then again, you're correct, that these materials are very sensitive, and just as it is, important, to check out the persons, and the integrity of those who are handling the process, it is important for us to also tell the citizens not to sell their PVCs after collecting it.
Most certainly. Talking about the modalities, you spoke the other time about people, INEC sending emails. Sounds like something we can suggest to INEC that can you schedule the days and times that people will come, send them text messages, at least
absolutely
they're registered with phone numbers, send them text messages and say, okay, come on so day at so time to get your PVC. I think that might work. Just the same way we did with NIN registration.
NIN registration.
How far with that, I don't know. That's the lead story of the Guardian newspaper this morning, of course. The Bolanle Rahim story is on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. NBA demands full disclosure, details of lawyers' killing. That's also right there on the front page of the paper. Nigerians reject 200% third-party vehicle insurance premium hike. From 5,000 to 15,000 naira. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's
in
half,
this economy.
Yes, that's half the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Okay, well, perhaps someone is thinking, look, if you're driving a car, then you are not collecting
minimum wage. Okay, but then those collecting minimum wage would aspire to drive a car someday.
But everything, all the costs will come back. If you are driving a commercial vehicle, of course.
That's why I said aspire. It's an aspiration.
My point is, if, for instance, a commercial vehicle driver pays 15,000 naira to get the papers, it is sure that the cost is going to come back
on the commuters.
On the commuters.
Yeah, sure.
One last one from here. World Bank warns of imminent global recession, debt distress. Oh no. Anyway, that story is on page 15. Find details there. It's a business story.
From there, let's flip to This Nigeria, and it has a number of interesting stories for you this morning. It leads with that which got Nigerians talking and mourning on what would have been a day of celebration, on social media now. It's about the murder of the Lagos lawyer, Bolanle Rahim. And this is the way This Nigeria reports the story. A murder so cruel. Outrage over killing of female lawyer by trigger-happy cop. Sanwo-Olu, that's the Lagos governor, IGP, Tinubu, Atiku condemn attack, demand quick investigation. Here's a quote. The killing of an innocent legal practitioner, wife, mother, and law-abiding citizen, Bolanle Rahim, on Christmas Day, while on a festive jaunt with her husband, is one death too many. We all must now grieve as a professional body and as a community with shared citizenry for this incredible loss. That's ascribed simply to a lawyer, but that's just as profound as it can be. A family thrown into mourning on Christmas Day Christmas has been forever marred for that family, and it was even more heartbreaking to learn that the lawyer was pregnant at the time she was shot and killed. That's really sad. It will form part of our conversation this morning. But let's look at other stories now. This one right beneath beneath the picture of the lawyer is one, of course, that will catch your attention. Again, Kukah slams Buhari's administration over corruption, nepotism. Of course, we'll talk more about that later on. And this one will also concern Nigerians, particularly amid the celebrations. The celebrations are not over yet. There's still, the crossover into the new year. Prices of food items hit rooftop. That's according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. By the way, how much did you buy your bag of rice and other ingredients for the celebration? Perhaps you would like to share with us, besides telling us about your PVC collection experience. Well, there's still some shopping to do ahead of the new year. That's if you haven't done all of it before Christmas. All right, look at this one. Flood. NAS seeks 250 billion naira in intervention fund, calls for ecological commission. And take a look at this one just before we exit this Nigerian newspaper. Crisis as Umahi, that's the Ebonyi governor, slams 5 million naira fine on campaign posters. That subject will still continue to ring through ahead of the election. How many days election now? Just about 60-something days, well, or less.
I think it's less than 60 now.
A lot less, yeah.
The Daily Times.
For this Nigeria.
The Daily Times newspaper is also talking about the murder of a female lawyer on its front page. Yesterday we were just talking about joy and some good news, and flipping to this morning is just not it at all. IGP orders speedy investigation, prosecution of indicted officers, says force leadership would not condone any inappropriate or unprofessional acts. Lagos police condole with family, friends of lawyer killed by police officer. NBA demands more details from police on alleged murder of female lawyer. Sometimes law is very interesting. It's been a murder and you say it's an allegation. Anyway, we'll find the details on the front page, continues on the inside pages. Beneath the picture is another not too pleasant story. Of course, you talked about it the other time on the front page of This Nigeria. It's food prices increased in November, according to NBS. And look at the writer. Says airfares rose by 97% in 1 year.
At least that's not an allegation.
Well, it's an NBS finding. You don't want to adjudicate over that if you like. Right above the nameplate, remain apolitical. COAS charges troops. Find the details right there on the front page. It also continues on the inside pages. On page 2, you'll find this one. Cash withdrawal limits. NLC rejects CBN policy. Says many Nigerians will be thrown into poverty. I hope the NLC has looked at the reviewed limits, and if it is still something, or maybe whether or not the news from the Daily Times is coming late, you may want to check the front page of the Daily Times newspaper today.
From there, let's flip to Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper also has a potpourri of stories this morning, but let's begin with the big story. It chooses to focus on politics in a departure from the first two. 2023 presidency, Tinubu, Obi's men shift battleground to southeast. Take a look at the riders. Governors are supporting Labour Party standard bearer, says Ohaneze. Jonathan supporters mobilize for APC presidential candidate. It seems now that we're getting a clearer direction as to where the politicians are headed. Initially it seemed that they were undecided or would pray for whoever comes to, seek their support. But we're getting a clear direction now as to where our politicians are headed. And indeed, just to add that the Rivers governor also says that very soon he would announce, his presidential candidate, I believe, or the party he would be supporting for the presidential election.
Okay, either of the two.
Either of the two.
But you know, talking to the direction that you talked about, I think there are some things that are very clear. Whoever is going to be president or governor must have 25% of votes from the major zones of the state or the nation. In the case of the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you must have 25% of votes from all 6 geopolitical zones. How that is going to play out, I guess that's one reason for all the parties to jostle from place to place. For the governors, however, I mean, we don't seem to be interrogating, well, governorship candidates, we don't seem to be interrogating the issues well enough. It just seems like it's a lot more about, you know, parties. Now, the whole idea of political debates by the contestants is so that the elites can know that, okay, these are the things that this person has in mind, and they can vote and perhaps also speak to their people, because it's one man, one vote. You can't have a block vote, you know, anywhere like that. So, but the people who normally go out to vote, most of them don't look at the dailies. They don't watch television. They don't, at least from INEC records, that's been the trajectory. So it is important for us to interrogate the people that want to employ. I think we should always underscore, it's not just an election. It's an employment that we want to give, because once this fellow gets the job, it's either he sees you or he doesn't see you. Now, I've thought about this for so long, Bukola. Electing a governor is not just electing one person into one office. We're electing this person into at least 1,000 offices, because he's going to appoint chairmen of ministries, departments, and agencies. He's going to appoint board chairmen, board members.
He's going to appoint the service chiefs. He's going to appoint the Inspector General of Police.
Exactly. And looking at the Auditor General's report, I'm not even sure the Auditor General's report fully captures the number of ministries, departments, and agencies that we have in the country. That's for the federal government. States, well, we don't even, it's like people don't even bother.
Accountability, you're saying now, is not 100%.
So when you are choosing who is going to go in there, you want to ask yourself, this job that I'm giving to this fellow, you're not just giving him one job to just sit in an office. You are giving him the job.
A whole lot of responsibility.
A whole lot of responsibility of selecting 36 ministers from across the nation. You have a right, for instance, as a governor to say, or president to say, no, this person, the National Assembly says no, so it's no. And so the state will have to bring someone else. So all of those things are going to have to come to play. So we have to be very, very circumspect to ensure that whoever we're employing, we're not employing just that one person, because if the persons he or she appoints fails, that president or that governor has failed. So we have to be very circumspect.
Yes, indeed. It's significant that you mentioned that it's sad, you know, that the elite are the ones who mostly interrogate the process of, you know, election debates and all of that. But, you know, from what has happened in the year 2022, that's just part of the story. If particularly the Osun election is a litmus test for what is to come in 2023, that sad point of our electioneering history would be significantly reduced if we were to judge by the awakening, the political awakening that Nigerians are experiencing. You know, for instance, hunger knows no political party. Hunger knows no, in fact, it knows no color of the skin or, you know, the voice of any presidential candidate. So Nigerians are going to be making a more decisive, taking a more decisive action as far as their destinies are concerned. So the elections are bound to be very surprising in 2023. Particularly at the subnational level, there's going to be many surprises. People are not going to necessarily vote you know, in line with political parties or their colors, but in line with personalities. That's just a personal prediction, you know, especially if we're measured by what's happening currently.
But at the end of the day, the Constitution and the Electoral Act recognizes that whoever it is has to be a representative of a political party. And that political party system, I'm not sure how strong we are.
Of course, those who are on the ballot are representing political parties. I'm just saying that they're going to be voting, in line with who they think can bring the desired change that they want. Yeah.
But then it has to be a collective decision. And we all Nigerians have to do it. So it's not something that we can just say, okay, it's this person's job, it's that person's job.
Yes, indeed. More stories before we exit. Leadership newspaper now. You'll find this one just above the big story, also about politics. Bala Mohammed, as the governor of Bauchi, alleges plot to rig Bauchi governorship election. You'll find details of that on page 7. Of course, we also captured it yesterday. And this one on security, 1 killed, 45 abducted by gunmen in Kaduna. Sad one there. And as just another more tragic one, 3 die in Niger Republic military helicopter crash. And lastly, just before we exit, this one is also about security. Deal decisively with terrorists. Army chief charges troops. That's a page 11 read on from Leadership newspaper. That's it for, let's leave it there for Leadership newspaper.
Daily Trust newspaper has this one on its front page, and it begins with unpaid tax. Bandits kill 4, abduct 100 farmers in Niger, or is it in Niger? Find the details of the paper. It's in Niger State. Find the details.
It must have been a mistake then on from Leadership.
On the front page of, find the details on pages 4 and 7 of the Daily Trust newspaper. 4 village heads in captivity, 1 killed. We're making efforts to rescue them. That's according to the police. Kidnappers kill 3 siblings, oh gosh. Motorcyclist after collecting 60 million naira in Taraba. Crops spoiling in our farms. Someone said that, I believe it will be a farmer. And military blames informants for attacks. This goes back to the issue we have raised countless times on trust. Well, the details are there on the front page. Well, the main story you'll find on pages 4 and 7 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Amidst 24 billion naira debt, FG criminalizes non-remittance of ticket cargo charges. That story is on the inside pages, along with Spain topples India as top export destination for Nigerian goods. Can you imagine? They're struggling to take the cake. Who imports into Nigeria the most?
The most.
Oh my God. All right, well, right at the bottom of the page, man killed by phone snatchers while jogging in Abuja, buried. Phone snatchers, of course, you find in inverted commas. The story is on page 6. Very, very sad indeed. And of course, that story of the killing of the female lawyer, among others, is also on the front page. Lagos CP orders ASP, 4 others detained for killing female lawyer. So 4 people, 5 people have been detained for the killing of this. Perhaps that's why the NBA is asking for more accountability, so to speak. More details of whoever it is that killed this female lawyer.
But it's not enough at this point, or it's sad that at this point for the story to be reported as an allegation. The person in question has died. She was shot and killed. So there's evidence to the effect that she's dead, and her family has been thrown into mourning. And imagine being a family member of the individual, and you picked up the paper and you saw that it has been reported as an allegation. It makes it even more difficult to bear. It's comforting, but even it doesn't make the pain less that it's comforting that the alleged killers have been arrested, but it doesn't make the pain any less for the family members this morning, especially at this time.
Well, you said something the other time about the fact that a killing, the family is certainly marred forever. Christmas is never going to be the same.
Never.
For that family when they recognize that this is what happened to their loved ones. Christmas is never going to be the same again. It's sad, but it's just one reality that we unfortunately have to live with. That's the Daily Trust newspaper today.
And from there, let's take a very quick look at the Vanguard. And Nigerians must be grateful for Vanguard's lead story this morning, as it captures, one thing that affects everyone. That's the ability to purchase petrol. Scarcity, NNPC sells petrol for 148 naira. Private depots, 215 naira. But the challenge is, you can't find the product in most of the NNPC filling stations. If you can find petrol, in any of the filling stations, please let us know.
If you find, it's been difficult in Lagos, from my own experience, to even find the product or the commodity.
In any filling station at all?
In any filling station selling for less than 200 naira.
It's been difficult for me to find any filling station selling for less than 245 naira.
Oh, well, I have been able to buy for between 230 and 250 naira because I don't like my tank to go anywhere past half tank. So I think it was 2 days ago, I made an effort in my area. And when I got to the tank, they've increased the cost gradually from 230 to 235 to 240 to 250. No, it's like no regrets. Okay. That's our story, and that's our reality.
So what has this whole scarcity been about? Is it for us to finally peg the price at 250 naira? How much are the major marketers and retailers purchasing it at the depots?
Perhaps this is why many
the NNPC should answer some of these questions.
Perhaps this is why, people are wondering, if you deregulate, what's the assurance we have that there won't be an oligarchy around fuel subsidy, around fuel costs?
Isn't there one already?
Remember the time when we had just MTN, Airtel, and I think 9Mobile, or maybe just the first two before Glo came. And Glo came, well, they said they could only do per minute billing, and before they could do anything beyond that, it's going to take a year or so. And Glo came and made it a per second billing, and everyone had to adjust the system to it. So is that the same thing we're going to have when we are fully deregulated? But at least let's even start something. Let's deregulate this thing, for God's sake. Let's because right now people can't find the fuel to buy. So if in the experience of a number of people in the US would be, look, fuel is sold at different prices at different fuel stations. That's for the city center. In other parts of our country today, I don't know if they're not getting it for 500 naira in upper parts of Nigeria. I don't know. I'm just saying.
It's a very real possibility, but you're right on the money when you suggest the experience of having another importer of petrol other than the NNPC. Let's see what it will look like. We're still waiting for the Port Harcourt refinery to come on stream. And, of course, the refinery that's been built in Lagos by the man who's been yet again named as the richest man, Dangote refinery. Let's see what experience Nigerians will begin to have about purchasing fuel after that. But let's quickly take a look at the riders. Ipman begins lifting from NNPC January 2023. Transporters hike fares, of course, that's expected. Commuters are stranded. NMDPIA not monitoring compliance. So what was that initial zeal about? And lastly, stakeholders harp on PIA implementation. Let's leave it there for The Guardian, the Vanguard newspaper.
And also leave it there for a look at the papers this morning. We'll take a short break and dive right into the issues for the day. Please stay with us.
With this squad app, I think my customers will understand that it's my own POS. No wuru wuru, no wago wago.
The killing of Mrs. Omobolanle Rahim, a female lawyer in Lagos, by a police officer who, according to the NBA, has been in the force for 33 years, raises a lot of questions about policing, police SOP, among other things. Let's take a look at some of these things and how do we even begin conversations such as this? With the history not too long ago of what happened in 2020 with the NSAS campaigns and all. Well, two gentlemen join us this morning to have this conversation with us. GT Ogunye is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
As well as Wilson Inoligo, who is a former Assistant Inspector General of Police in, he joins us from our Abuja studio. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Inoligo.
Well, it's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Ogunye, it's definitely not something we want to talk about at such a time when we are all talking about joy. But you want to first of all give us an understanding of how this came across to you.
It was a sad development, which ought not to have happened, but it happened. And so first and foremost, we must commiserate with the grieving family for this unfortunate incident. You know, reflecting on that death now, symbolically the day Mary put to bed, and I'm talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ, was the day she was felled by a fatally fired police bullet from the gun of a cock from hell. And given all that we've read in the newspapers now, it ought not to have happened. Let's say up front that police men in our metropolis, particularly in Lagos, have become ubiquitous. Every corner, everywhere you go, you must see them on patrol or on stop and search operations, not mounting roadblocks, but stationing themselves and their vehicles and searching vehicles. And we've had some harvest of criminals through that process. So we can't, at this point, say that such searches are not necessary. As a matter of fact, I've seen some footages of citizens calling on government and asking where the police were when they were in distress, particularly along that Ajah axis. In the evenings, when there's traffic snarl or traffic holdups, these louts and urchins and criminals smash windows and, you know, steal from motorists, steal from commuters, seizing their phones and all that. And on such occasions, people have been wondering where are the policemen. And you can imagine that if the police were to intervene on those occasions, and they've intervened on a few occasions, they can fire shots into the air. They can aim to disable fleeing scoundrels. And in the process, things like this could happen. But on this occasion, given all the reports we've read, and that's why I believe that police force immediately took in the suspect and the members of his team. And suspect is not, from what we've read, a young officer, 33 years in service, 2 years to retirement, assistant superintendent of police. He's an officer. And so when things like this occur, you need to ask some questions. You should profile this police officer. Do you have such incident before? Are there incidents of drunkenness on duty? I mean, what could have caused this kind of thing? Of course, it's still a suspect in the eye of the law, and we're not supposed to engage in open trial. This is horrendous. It's horrendous, and the circumstances do not portray the police in good light.
Well,
at all.
There's a lot to unearth, so to speak, even on this program this morning. But let's have the opening comments of Mr. Inaligu as well. Well, this is one too many. For there are those who would reference that this is the second within a month, this same month of December, in this city of Lagos. So one wonders if it is something that the police foresaw, or what would be your take?
Well, I think it's most unfortunate and saddening that this had to happen on such a day, particularly, or any time at all. And I think the police management is very disturbed and also saddened, because what else can you do? You try to give training to your personnel, and they go out there against all laid down regulations and instructions. They behave to the contrary and bring the Nigeria police force to public embarrassment or opprobrium. So I think, more than this, every police officer, and especially of the rank of an assistant superintendent of police, should know under what circumstances he can use his weapon and how to secure. He should have the necessary skill to secure his weapon. Is it possible he cocked and he didn't apply the safety pin? What really went wrong? Because when I read the news that he approached the vehicle from the passenger side, the front passenger side, where the wife of this, the woman was seated, and then he discharged his ammunition and killed that woman. So, first of all, I think the issue of training and retraining, building capacity to ensure high performance with particular reference to respect to human rights, dealing with emotional issues, because if an officer is not able to control or manage his emotion or to act before he thinks about it, raise serious issues. But I think in approaching this, yes, you can take disciplinary action, you can prosecute, but going forward, how do you prevent this? How, right from the police academy and police training institutions, in dealing with, in assessing the emotion of officers, how are you able to, in terms of recruitment process, how are you able to deal with this? How are you able to instruct officers? And what of the supervision? When they go around and they observe the conduct of officers, what actions are immediately taken? Because in a situation like this, we expect officers to exercise precaution. Is it necessary to use your weapon? Is it lawful or legal for you to use your weapon? And that is why when IG Adamu Mohammed And then with the launch, the Red Cross, the International Committee of Red Cross, decided to review the police order force 237 to be able to see, look, when you have lethal weapon in the hand of officers, do we use stun guns, tasers, so that at the first approach, you don't discharge or you don't use lethal weapon, and you reduce the amount of lethal weapon on our streets. And officers are instructed, that vehicle that has escaped from you, is there nothing else you can do? If you discharge your weapon, is it likely to ricochet? Is it likely to meet the target? Do you have the required skill to be able to take out a vehicle by firing at the tire? So that in using your weapon, all this should be taken into consideration. And so self-management becomes very important for the officers. And that's talking about emotional intelligence, which every officer at this policing the 21st century in a democracy should be properly trained. So I think it's part of the reform process. It's part of the capacity building.
One quick one, which is something that we have been talking about for a while, but one just wonders why this will happen in the same division within 2 weeks. There are those who, of course, who will reference that a certain Gafaro Brahima was also killed in the same division by another officer. Whether or not it's this same fellow, one wonders. But in 2 weeks, 2 murders, one wonders. Is it a question of SOP, or is it something that's been going on and no one had been paying attention, especially from the police authorities, whether in Lagos or in Abuja?
Well, the Nigeria Police Force has standard operating procedures. And when in the use of weapon, you talk about, is there immediate danger to your life? And there is no other way, or to a member of the public, that you can prevent such a person from death. And is it unavoidable that if you don't use weapon, that person you are protecting or yourself face immediate danger? In this case, it doesn't happen. But therefore, what I think, in my opinion, is as you give instruction, you supervise, you take punitive step to be able to deal with this situation and prevent them from occurring. Now, when they go out there, because...
The question is, what went wrong such that in 2 weeks, 2 deaths from officers of the law of Nigerians have occurred? Even if it was something that would have happened, it should have gone through some process of law of sorts. So that's why I mean, you've spoken about the, police standard operating procedure. All of that is understood. But to happen twice in 2 weeks from the same division.
And Ayo, just to add to that, just sometime in the middle of the year, there was also a murder of that, sound engineer in Lekki, from Lekki as well. And this division is in Lekki.
So, Mr. Nelegu, you may want to speak to this.
Yeah, first of all, the police has the preservation of law and order. Therefore, officers will not be sent out to go and kill law-abiding citizens. These things happen, and they are most unfortunate. But it is not that division, they lack supervision or otherwise. But when officers go out, you go and visit them. As soon as you turn your back, they engage in behaviors that are unprofessional. So it's unfortunate, it's coincidental, and it's unfortunate that it happened. But I think it's not the policy of the police or even that division to go to officers. And I think you've got to be in the mind of the DPO, the Commissioner of Police and the IG. And the IG will not be sitting comfortable, or even the CP, once there is a death that occurs in such an avoidable circumstance. So I don't want us to say that that division has no history of good management, but it's unfortunate that these officers, against all ethics, against all regulation, have gone out to bring embarrassment and sadness to this family. So it's unfortunate, but it calls that there should be more supervisory management in place. And there should be a kind of monitoring and evaluation of the performance of our personnel at the various stop and search points on their patrols. Officers from the AIG, from the Commissioner of Police, should be on the field to begin to monitor the conduct of these officers in the way they conduct their business, in the way they conduct stop and search, in the way they approach the public, and give this assessment and take action against officers even before it occurs. So I don't want the public to believe that it is a policy or the Nigeria police does not supervise our officers. They do, but when some of these officers go, but there is a need for placing a monitoring and evaluation so that you begin to monitor the officers, and the AIGs are not doing so much. So in their offices, they should be sent out there. The Commissioner of Police, they should be sent out there. And when you find officers, because it is a disciplinary offense to drink while you are on duty, therefore, you monitor these officers even before it happens. And they must be told that you cannot, in a built-up area, because I think there is a dictum in law that it is far better to allow 10 guilty persons to go scot-free than for one innocent person to suffer or one innocent person to be killed.
Mr. Nalegu, you've touched on a very sore point. That's the conduct of officers while on duty. I'm sure Nigerians will be interested in that. I'd like to pursue that, but that to be, shortly. Let me come to you, Barrister Ogunyi. As a result of this sad incident, Nigerians are embarking on that self-education when, an event like as this occurs, which is whenever you are in an encounter with a police officer, you don't argue. You simply comply with whatever it is that officer is demanding or asking of you. If you must accompany them to the police station, do so, and then make your complaints, present your evidence later if you have been wrongly accused or wrongly fined. But then again, what that suggests is that if they have been wrongly accused or wrongly fined, their rights, their fundamental human rights, would have been tampered with, so to speak. What does this say about our democratic experience if this is the point we have gotten to in our interaction with law enforcement agents who are supposed to, protect us?
The law provides consequences for resisting arrest. But even at that, the law does not expect that on the ground of resisting arrest alone, the person resisting arrest must be killed. The right to life is so sacrosanct, and death is so final and not remediable to such an extent that once death comes, that's the end. Every other thing becomes post-mortem, so to speak. I'm just speaking metaphorically. And so, yes, it could be wise to admonish Nigeria not to argue with police officers. In fact, a former police commissioner who rose to become an inspector general of police, in an interaction with lawyers many, many years back, had advised that, look, you lawyers, if you encounter my men on the road and they argue with you and they threaten to fire you, comply. If they ask you to jump into the body of water, do so. But ensure you pick their number, because that policeman could be drunk. And that he is the commissioner. If he's in the mufti and is so ordered by errant policemen, he will so comply just to protect his life. Yes, we can admonish the citizens not to argue with policemen when they are on duty. The question that we must ask is, what citizens do we want to raise? Dumbasses, pardon my French, people who cannot argue, cannot talk. I'm not saying that citizens should engage the policemen in fisticuffs and beat them up. But even when that has happened, we're not told that such persons are killed. Again, I give an example. Along that axis, many months back, Nigerians forget and Lagosians may forget. There were two chaps, two men, wrestling with two policemen and trying to seize their guns. the video went viral. On that occasion, those persons were apprehended. The policemen didn't fire in broad daylight. And they did it so audaciously. And I was alarmed, even as a lawyer. What are these people thinking? Or did they think that in the post-NSAS era, Nigerians have the liberty to engage policemen and wrestle guns with them and try to harm them while they're on duty? Okay, so we've seen that happen. But I'm saying that on this occasion, an argument didn't even ensue. There was no altercation. It was so unwarranted that you had this. And yet, the retired police officer in Abuja has spoken eloquently about how this should start from the police academy and so on and so forth. Training, how they should handle weapons, and continuous training in the exercise. Yes, I agree with him because, you know, in some respect, you have to look at that. How many months do they spend in the police academy? And when they spend these months in the police academy, how did they train them on handling of weapons? This weapon they're handling, they are Kalashnikovs, semi-automatic weapons, automatic weapons, and all that. And when they fired, even the person firing it is shaking. So if you don't handle the gun very well and aim properly, for example, if a car is fleeing and you want to disable the car, you want to shoot at the tire, you must aim at the tire and shoot at the tire if you have to. Not fire blank and fire at a moving object that is occupied with human beings and then claim that I didn't expect disaster to occur. Disaster will occur. Well, so the point is that...
Yeah. We'll come to some of these because you touched on something, and I think it's something that needs to be expatiated a little further, both from your end and from Mr. Enolegu's end, which is in the wake of the NSAS. It's just 2 years gone past the NSAS experience. It's just 2 years, and is it 2 or 3 months gone past it? And this is what we have on our hands. No, just 2 years and 2 months. Gone past it. And this is what we have on our hands. What happens in 5 years and 10 years from now?
Okay.
Are we going to get back to the same situation? We'll talk about that and more when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're still talking about the unfortunate killing of Bolanle Rahim by a policeman. And 2 gentlemen are still with us. Well, Mr. Ogunye, what we closed with, of course, Mr. Enolegu, you'd also weigh in on the issue. It's just 2 years and 2 months shy of the NSAS protests, which in itself, conversations around it started around 2015 or thereabout, talking about police brutality, harassment of innocent citizens and all of that. And the NSAS was mostly about treating policemen better. That was the subject matter, that government should pay more attention to policemen to ensure that they get their dues and all of those things. NSAS. Now, SARS has ended, and the killing of Mrs. Omobolanle Rahim is perhaps just one of several. Do you think, as a country, we have taken in any lesson and applied it from the NSAS, movement, protests, whatever we want to call it?
From my observation, I don't think so. And that's unfortunate and sad. My immediate response to the question or your line of discourse before we went on break is that, yes, SARS have been disbanded, but the police force has not been disbanded. Those who constituted SARS essentially were policemen. And so, although the officer from Abuja has tried to manage a difficult situation by not suggesting that the Ajiwe police station could be profiled for bad behavior and bad conduct, there's no escaping, thinking like that. So why should policemen in a particular location be notorious for killing people? Okay? And so, if what we've had therefore is a dispersal of the murderous element in SARS, in the larger police force, that means this problem is not going to go away. So I say that we've not learned our lessons, and it's very sad. People have been perennially and perpetually calling for police reforms. So you expect that if reforms are carried out, there will be some measurable, perceptible, discernible turnaround, that there's an improvement. Can Nigerians say that Nigerians that encounter policemen every day, can the police authority do a poll? Do they do a poll?
Okay.
Do they conduct surveys to find out what the people think about them on a continuous basis for them to have some kind of feedback, even after answers? Have they been doing this? So we can see the impact of the reforms that they talked about every time. We can see the reforms are not just only in terms of uniforms, cosmetic reforms. We're talking about head-shaking fundamental reforms that will ensure that things like this don't occur, because they occur every time.
Speaking of reforms, I'd like to now bring it to Mr. Inaligu, who talked about training. And I believe that you also wanted to err on the side of caution when you assured us that police would not deliberately deploy officers who are not in the right frame of mind. But then again, if this is some form of feedback for you, we see police officers who would rather go after the big vehicles that can pay a fine, or perhaps, pay a bribe. We see police officers who refrain from, volatile situations just to save themselves, from harm's way. We see so many other things related. So what kind of training then are they receiving? Besides, the lack of training that we evidently see in weapons handling. So if this is what we see in their response, to maintenance of law and order, then it begs the question.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Inaligu.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to disabuse the mind of the public that you cannot, at the checkpoint or when officers are on patrol, engage with the police by asking questions. So they are not the enemies of the community. Rather, the police is very desirous of good relationship with the public that will translate to better crime management, to better performance of their duty. Unfortunately, however, when officers like this ASP behave, all the good intentions, all the good job of the force is forgotten because of these kind of officers. So it's most unfortunate. And I want to say, in terms of reform, I think it should go deeper down, especially in terms of funding for training institutions. And then taking the issue of community policing holistically, that every officer get to understand that they alone cannot manage the issue of crime, but it must be together with the community. And you cannot be together with the community when you don't respect their basic rights. And the first being the right to life, which unfortunately has been violated here. But in terms of training, and which goes from reform, now, we have a lot of reform committees have been set up. But I think, in my opinion, a lot needs to be done. What is the funding of training institutions like? Who are the officers that are deployed to training institutions? Are they sent to training institutions based on merit, based on capacity, or as punishment? So we must take the issue of training very seriously, that with the kind of officers we deploy to our training institutions must be the best. And getting the best training institutions, you've got to in place some welfare for them so that they receive that motivation and they don't hurry to. So if you take me to training institutions, it becomes punishment. So let us look at our training institutions and give modern training that is suitable for the 21st century. And I did in my opening remarks, I talked about emotional intelligence and also social intelligence, which is the officers who are on duty get to understand the emotion of the people they are dealing with. And in understanding that emotion, they are able to address their concerns. And in addressing those concerns, it takes you to the realm of community policing, and that the community and the police coming together to adopt common problem-solving approach. So, and then they become the friends of the community. So you can go to the checkpoint and you can ask the other, why are you searching me?
Yeah, that is quite a trip that we have to take.
And
there are those who believe that this trip started as far back as 2015, when the build-up to the NSAS things came up. So the question, just this one, and then if you can answer it in 30 seconds, because we have run out of time. Well, you heard Mr. Ogunye's response to the question of whether or not we have taken on board significant lessons from the NSAS movement, which was predominantly about taking care of the police and doing some of these things that you suggested.
Well, I think lessons have been learned, and those lessons, I think police welfare salary has been increased, even those of retired officers, but I think there is more. There are several areas of improvement.
This was significant enough to deter the kind of things that has happened?
Of course.
You think the welfare of the policemen, you think the welfare of policemen is sufficient to take care of the things that they have to go through in their personal lives and protect Nigerians accordingly?
Several rooms. There is much room for improvement.
Okay. Well, Mr. Wilson Enolegu, former Assistant Inspector General of Police, thank you so much for your time this morning, as well as Mr. G.T. Ogunye, a legal practitioner. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate your time.
Thanks.
We're back after now. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. You're not unaware that in his Christmas message titled, "Let Us Turn a New Page," Bishop Matthew Kukah of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto said the president will be leaving Nigerians far more vulnerable than when he assumed office on May 29, 2015, despite his many promises. And his message read in part, "Mr. President, sir, a Merry Christmas to you and your entire family. I speak for myself and for many Nigerians when I say we thank God he mercifully restored you to good health. We know that you are healthier now than you were before. We can see it in the spring in your steps, thousands of miles you have continued to cover as you travel abroad. May God give you more years. However, I also wish that Nigerians, millions of our citizens, had a chance to enjoy just a fraction of your own health by a measurable improvement in the quality of healthcare in our country." End of quote. What all this means for us as we build up to the elections, let's have a conversation around with Dr. Adetokunbo Pierce, who is a member of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council and Lagos State Coordinator of the Atiku Okowa Presidential Campaign Support Groups. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
We also have Ibrahim Modibo, who is a public affairs analyst. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Yeah. Let me begin with you, Mr. Pierce. I mean, you know about that story, and of course, your party has also responded, saying as far as the PDP is concerned, government has failed. But then there are those who will also always reference some landmarks that the president has, this administration has achieved over the past 7 going to 8 years.
Well, the achievements are too little, too late. When you compare the failures and the problems we have, I don't think it is a surprise to anybody what Bishop Kukah has said. I doubt if anybody will disagree with him. In fact, we have to thank God for people like him that are able to tell the truth to power. And hopefully the electorate will hold them accountable come election time. The failures have overshadowed the little achievements. I mean, Reverend Kukah talks about the health issue in Nigeria. The president can go abroad. Some people in his cabinet and people who are wealthy, a few people can go abroad for treatment. The health industry in Nigeria basically collapsed. It's a major problem. When the president got into office, one of the things he promised was that he would do so many things, including make sure that people who are sick don't go abroad for treatment. They would take care of it here. He said he will sell out the presidential jets. It will be economical in the way he deals with things. It will be fair. He has failed in every sector. He has failed even to tackle corruption because, frankly, I would say it here. And, you know, we can say these things. You have a problem because they may come and close your business down. But nobody can close me down. This president has been the most corrupt president in the history of Nigeria, apart from being the most incompetent.
Do you have
nepotism?
Proof? Do you have proof that he
yes,
has been corrupt?
Nepotism is corruption.
It really has.
Yes, yes, yes. Nepotism is a form of corruption. When you do things that are wrong, that are not fair to people, that is part of corruption. It isn't only when you steal money. That is financial corruption. Moral corruption is there too. This is decadence. When you have a situation where every major appointment you make is in favor of people from your ethnic group, that is corruption. That is terrible. And that has disunited Nigeria more than ever before. So when we talk about failure, look at the security situation we have in Nigeria. Nobody is safe. And what does the president do? People are kidnapped, they can't find them. Now you say people shouldn't have money to pay ransom when you cannot save the people who have been kidnapped. So, look, we have failed in so many ways. This administration has failed in so many ways.
Okay,
and Dr. Bishop Kukah talks about the health, talks about nepotism, talks about the idea of a Muslim ticket, insensitivity in every level.
Okay, let's get some responses from Mr. Modibo right now, who is in our Abuja studio. Well, Mr. Modibo, you heard him, and of course you are aware of what Bishop Kukah has said. How do you respond?
Thank you very much, Ayo and Bola, for inviting me this morning. Happy Xmas and a prosperous New Year in advance. My heart also goes to the family of Bolanle and the NBA and all Nigerians over the sad and unfortunate incident. Having stated this, let me place a caveat that I am here as a dispassionate analyst that is not under the purview or the payroll of the government or President Muhammadu Buhari. He has people that could defend him and people that he pays to defend his government. Having stated this, let me say here that I have area of convergence and also area of divergence with the views of Bishop Matthew Kukah over the analysis of the present administration's performance profile. Let me state here, without any fear of contradiction, that President Muhammadu Buhari, when he came in, he had a very patriotic and nationalistic feeling of intervening in the process of good governance of this country. We might agree or disagree that the tripodal structure under which the government had a focus to fight insecurity, tame corruption, and also look at the issues of providing social infrastructure and also opening the floodgate for democratic views as well as free, fair, and credible elections. Has President Muhammadu Buhari succeeded? I will say yes, and also I will say no. Now, I will tend to agree with Matthew Kukah to some extent that, look, there has been some challenges here and there, which is normal. There is no country guided by reason that has 100% good governance the world over. Under globalization and multiculturalism, such as ours in Nigeria, in the world over, there have been problems and prospects. Even in America, you have challenges of insecurity, challenges of corruption, challenges of development when it comes to the issues of governance. And therefore, Nigeria cannot be an exception. This man came in and found a situation in which Nigeria was buckled under the full weight of ravenous and greedy political class who turned the public treasury, looted the economy, and then made it a kind of predatory instinct on our treasuries. The PDP government left a footprint of corruption, a footprint of
Mr. Modibo,
underdevelopment.
Since you started to speak about insecurity, well, one of the things that Father Kukah said, well, Bishop Kukah said, is in this quote that we cut out. In Nigeria today, we bear scars, we bear trauma, we bear deep sorrow today. Our children are still in the forests, in the hands of evil men, but most of them have no names. They are only numbers. Still, he asks us, Bishop Kukah asks us not to give up. So if the president has done as well, that's it right there, as you say, when it comes to security, and exactly where, would we be looking at? When he talks about our children being in the forests, the Daily Trust newspaper keeps a daily count of those who are still in captivity. After 560 days, 11 schoolgirls of FGC Burning Yori are still in captivity. And after 532 days, one student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, is still in captivity. So, how do you respond?
It is lamentable, Ayo, that today Nigeria finds itself in a situation where we find gross and monumental corruption, spiritually indiscipline, impunity, and also the issue of monumental security challenges that has bedeviled this country here and there. But this security challenge, has it started with the Buhari government? I would say no. It had antecedents right from the dawn of democracy when this government, the government of PDP, came into power in 2019. And therefore, it is a spiraling issue that has gone down and deep into this government. The all over the security challenges, especially the issue of COVID-19 and what have you. Now, agreed that we have security challenges here and there in this country. There is no country that doesn't have security challenges, including America, as I've stated, for the purpose of emphasis. Now, Nigeria finds itself, because it came in, there are problems besieging the government here and there, especially that of economy, that of unemployment, that of corruption, and what have you. And therefore, this insecurity is something that cropped up because of the level of poverty of governance and also the poverty of the people and poverty of the mind. Agreed that a lot of people have been hijacked, especially the bandits have carried these people to the forest and whatever. I agree, there are security challenges. And therefore, this government, to be fair to the President Muhammadu Buhari's government, I would say that the government has tried very well in terms of provision of infrastructure to the military. There is no government from the dawn of history, right from the colonial period, that has been able to provide monies in trillions to the military to purchase hardware to fight corruption. I don't expect President Muhammadu Buhari to put on his uniform as a general and move into the forest. I believe that the security people, especially the military, which is doing very well today, should have gone on a proactive rather than reactive instances. And today,
Mr. Modibo,
we must commend this government.
Don't forget, Mr. Modibo.
Let me land, Mr. Ayo.
Okay.
Please, can I land? Please,
go ahead.
Let me just land.
Go ahead.
We must today appreciate the fact that if you look at what has happened before the Buhari government, people in here, even here in Abuja, were not sleeping with our two eyes closed. We've been having bombings here and there everywhere. But today, peace and tranquility has returned to Abuja and everywhere in the country, especially even in the Northeast, where we have today the general, that Christopher, that has been manning the Northeast region. Today, the Boko Haram has been pushed to the fringes of the Sambisa forest, and some of them have even crawled to Cameroon. You can see that this peace is returning. But agreed, there are areas, especially in southern Kaduna,
but when you try,
Zamfara, and
when you make an
attempt,
just a second, when you make an attempt to vindicate the president and you say the military should do what they're supposed to do, don't forget that he's not just president. He's also commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And the armed forces is made up of any force that carries arms. Let's not forget that. There's more to say when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Still extraying Bishop Kukah's message to the president. Dr. Pierce, I mean, you've also heard his responses. And he made a statement that, look, these things had a foundation in the PDP days. And that, you know, the APC is literally playing catch-up on some of these things. Do you agree with him to any extent?
Well, every new government has to play catch-up to the one before. You come into government with the promise to improve on what was before you. When Obasanjo came into government, he came to correct the ills of the military. And in that administration, achieved a lot, improved the economy, paid off Nigeria's debts and so on, brought up new industries like the telecommunications industry, improved it, improved the oil sector. So no government is perfect. So he's right. Everybody knows that. For instance, this issue of police brutality, you know, when you were discussing it, something came to my mind, and that is how bad the issue is in America. But what you have in America is simply reaction and the way you solve problems. You have problems everywhere. What do you do about the problems? For instance, there is no outrage against police brutality as much as it should be. There is no proper punishment for the police that commit the crime. You talk about NSAS and what we did. NSAS was just after NSAS, after the rebellion, there was just superficial changes. You need more police. Nigeria is under-policed. That's part of the problems police have. When one policeman is threatened by 2,000 people, what does he do? He panics, he begins to shoot. So we need a lot of improvement. Yes, indeed. The Buhari government made problems, but they made promises. Just as Jonathan made, he made problems, and he tried to improve. Every government must do their turn. They must improve. They must bring about desired change for the society. When Muhammad Buhari came in, he came in with the goodwill like we've never seen before for any president. People expected so much. But those of us who studied, who researched his background, we knew there were going to be problems. When he was chairman of the Petroleum Trust Fund, he was a total failure. So when you now come and you say you want to be president, you are president and you make yourself the minister for petroleum, that is why they're stealing us blind in that industry, as they did when he was chairman of the Petroleum Trust Fund.
Just 1 second. It was the PDP government that started that process of making the petroleum minister the president.
No, the point is this. Okay, let us say that PDP government made a mistake. It was wrong. And it is not wrong for any president to make himself oil minister. It depends on what you are. Do you have the experience? What we are saying is that Buhari already had experience of failure in the industry.
But Dr. Pierre,
so
you
I knew that it would be a problem, and that is the problem we have now. So
you've
fighting
pointed
corruption,
fingers a whole
yes.
lot, at the current government. But,
Sure.
many Nigerians will say it's same of same. For instance, you accuse the current administration of being corrupt, and you in fact say nepotism is corruption. But under the immediate
I did
past,
not accuse the president.
under the immediate past administration also, in fact, your current candidate accused the former administration of running a government of clientelism, of awarding contracts to its cronies. So is that also not some type of corruption?
Look, what I'm saying is this. The president, I'm not saying the administration is corrupt. Everybody in the administration is not corrupt. This president is corrupt because selective prosecution in the EFCC, that's what he does. People he doesn't like, he prosecutes. That is wrong. And anyway, let's not talk about the past now and what
Let's
problems
talk about the past, because the
have.
past is trying to return. The
No,
immediate past administration
no.
wants to return as,
No.
as the ruling party yet again. So let's talk about the past. It's
past,
significant for us to talk about the past as well.
The past PDP administration is not trying to return. PDP is a political party. There are individuals who are in the party who are trying to get into government.
Absolutely, that's what I meant.
What did they do when they were in government? And what do you expect them to do now? Let me tell you.
So what's going to be different?
What is going to be different now is this. If we don't restructure this country, all of these problems will come back again. What we need now is a president who is fully committed to decentralizing government, to making sure that each state has its enough autonomy to be able to deal with its problems. If we don't have that, you're going to have continuously degradation in terms of quality of life for our people. So therefore, that is what is going to be different now. And then, look, what you have in any election is a choice between people, a choice. Now look at what we have in front of us. I'm saying, don't talk about PDP did this in the past and they did that, and you're looking at all the flaws in the past, you're not looking at the achievements. Under the Obasanjo administration, a great deal of achievement. Under the Jonathan administration, the first time in the history of Nigeria, we had a GDP that was higher than that of South Africa. We had an administration where there were no political prisoners as such.
And indeed, Reverend Father Bishop Kukah also lauds this administration for, its infrastructural development as well.
Sure.
So if you say that the PDP did well, Bishop Kukah has not shied away from acknowledging what this government has done well as well.
Yes, they have done well. The issue is by comparison. We had problems in the Jonathan administration. The dollar was not won to the naira, and rice was not inexpensive. Transportation was not inexpensive, but nothing as bad as we have today in terms of quality of life. Daily life is a hell now more than before. All we are saying is every administration must try to make an improvement. Obasanjo administration made an improvement. Jonathan administration made an improvement. What we have in the Buhari administration is a disaster. There's not been an improvement in virtually, I give them 20% for the infrastructural development. In the meantime, look at the capital. There's no money to pay staff. Everything is used to pay. We cannot even, all our resources are gone. All the oil revenue, and then there's not been diversification of the economy. This government has failed in the way it's handled the economy and security, and in terms of government, fairness in governance. Those three areas.
All right. Let's give Mr. Modibo an opportunity to respond to some of the issues that were raised. But while you're doing that, let me set the tone for it, particularly drawing from Bishop Kukah's letter. This is, a paragraph from what he wrote to Mr. President. He says, a caste system has emerged in our country. It has consolidated its hold and blunted the cutting edge of all institutions. A majority of its children are swimming against the tide of survival with no support, while the other castes, that would be the haves now, smiles in the comfort of their life jackets. Is this caste system a product of our democratic experience? I'm asking now, or has it always been there? And this speaks particularly to, to the heightened gap between the rich and the poor. Specifically, yet again, Mr. Modibo, what happened to this administration's National Poverty Reduction Growth Scheme that, was a platform to address the promise of Mr. President to move 100 million Nigerians out of poverty?
Thank you very much, Buki, for this wonderful question. You see, before I move into this wonderful question, let me, for the purpose of emphasis, state that the past is very important. That's why I'm in sync and in tune with the philosophical dictates of George Santayana, who stated that if experience is not retained, infancy is perpetual. Those that forget the past are doomed to repeat it. Therefore, the issue of the past, especially the nuances and the governance of PDP, must be brought into focus. I do not believe, as Nigerians, we should trust Atiku with leadership of this country, or the PDP, for very obvious reasons. If you look at even their campaigns, they are doing their campaigns every time on selling our assets, which has been done under the PDP government before, and it was just for their personal enrichment. Every time it's selling assets. Every time it's selling assets. Not thinking of the wherewithal of turning the fortunes of this country, turning the economy, bringing employment, and also making Nigeria what it is. So now, let me go to your question. Agreed. Nigeria is currently having challenges of corruption, I have stated, indiscipline, the issue of insecurity, and also the issue of lack of jobs, and also the economy. Nigeria is not an exception. The world over, because of this COVID-19 and other issues, the country has been faced with a lot of challenges that had to do with the economy. I agree corruption is there. Some people are wallowing in abject wealth while others are under the drains. I agree. But there is a need for us to look at the issues dispassionately. I agree with Matthew Kukah that, look, these areas need to be examined. That is where my area of convergence. But my area of divergence comes here. Whether we like the face of President Muhammadu Buhari or not, he is one man that you cannot point accusing fingers to him as a corrupt person. I can bet my life and I can bet my integrity on the line. He is not corrupt as an individual. Now, look at the government. It has performed in terms of provision of social infrastructure. Look at the railway lines that have been opened. Kaduna, Abuja, Lagos, Ibadan. Look at the network of roads, Atakwe, the railway lines. Look at the issues of, agricultural social investment programs. There are a lot of social investment programs in which a lot of monies have been sunk so as to bring people out of poverty. But unfortunately, the Nigerian system has been bedeviled by corruption and unmitigated lawlessness. While some few people whom the president has entrusted the capacity of governance have been able to take that into their own pockets, and it's unfortunate. That is where we have a problem. Now, Bishop Matthew Kukah should be sincere. He is looking at issues based on overflow of powerful emotions, which has been misconstrued as basing his own argument based on sentiments of issues of emotions, issue of religion, and issue of politics. And I think this should not be the focal point. We should look at issues of Nigeria's development constructively. I agree. Under this government, Matthew Kukah has been very critical. When he was in PDP or when he has been given appointments by Buhari, by Obasanjo and Goodluck Jonathan, has he been critical of the governments? I've never had Matthew Kukah challenging those governments because he was involved with the government. But now that he's not in government, he has not been forthcoming, they have never given me any appointment, he's always criticizing the government.
Unfortunately, just 1 second, Mr.
Modibo.
Unfortunately,
yes.
Bishop Kukah is not here to defend himself, and I don't know him as having ever been given an appointment, the way you are putting it. However, you know, that you're speaking about criticizing some of the things that he said, which included issues around insecurity. Well, The controversial cleric, as he is adjudged to be, Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, said at some point that Nigerians should not vote for anyone who will fight bandits, which are part of the things that, Father Bishop Kukah talked about. He said the fighters are our warriors in the forests, our people in the forest, he said. He said, vote for those who after attaining power, will call and negotiate with our people, which are these bandits, so as to give them what they want for peace to reign. Do you agree with that as well?
No. If you look at the issue of Gumi is still part of this government. As far as I'm concerned, Gumi is a critic of this government, whether we like it or not. Now, when I talk about Matthew Kukah being in government,
no, speak to this particular one.
Even the prop panel. Look at even the prop panel, Oputa. He was in it, and he was also collecting allowances. But since this government came in, he has not been featuring anything fundamental that has to do with the governance. That's what I'm saying. So he had no stepping stone on which, or a fertile ground on which to lay on to criticize that government. And now he's doing it because maybe he's not forthcoming in this government. I'm not defending this government. And as far as I'm concerned,
can you fault the issues that Bishop Kukah raised? Can you fault the issues that he raised? You say they are emotional, and rightly so. He has to speak with congregants on a daily basis, even non-congregants of his own church who go through these things on a daily basis. So that's one cleric saying that and criticizing issues that concern people, because at the end of the day, hey, who is not sentimental or emotional about issues that concern his economy or personal security? Everyone is. I bet you are as well. But then look at the one that I just told you now about, this, Sheikh Gumi that you just said, he's also part of the government. Is that in any way a valid statement for him to make? Do you think it is something government or anyone seeking office should give credence to?
What I'm saying here, Ayo, is that Sheikh Gumi is not part of this government. He is not a member of APC, and I do not believe that he's part of this government. He has always been very critical on the negative side of this government. He has not been in sync with this government. I'm not defending the Buhari government. I agree. That's why I said I have some areas of convergence and also area of divergence with Matthew Kukah's postulations. Agreed. There are a lot of things that he said are based on facts. And also there are some areas that he needs to also give this government credit, especially in areas of provision of social infrastructure. Look at even the third,
But Mr. Modibo, he did that in the letter.
Second Niger Bridge.
He did that in the letter. He acknowledged the achievement of this administration in the area of infrastructure.
But has he been able to single them out for exceptional, analysis? It has all been buried, or it has all been buried by the negativities, the negative aspects of this government. And I think as a cleric, he should be dispassionate. He should not allow overflow of sentiments and emotions to override the sense of reasoning. So what I'm saying is, agreed.
But perhaps, Mr. Modibo, perhaps that is because,
yes,
the odds perhaps outweigh the benefits that have come from infrastructure development. Wouldn't you agree that Nigerians are united on the fact that, there's a big concern about insecurity, there's a big concern about the economy, there's a big concern about, inflation?
The most outstanding and worthy narrative of this administration is the fact that, look, we must agree as Nigerians that there are areas of fundamental flaws where this government has not performed. I have stated over, and let me for the purpose of emphasis state, that this government has to a large extent failed in some of the areas, fundamental areas of corruption, the issue of provision of security. Although we must give it credit that it has done very well in terms of security. Now, if we look at the issues of provision of social infrastructure, the third mainland bridge, the second Niger bridge, even for the IPOB people, they must commend this government for building that bridge, which has, eased up the traffic we've seen during the Christmas period. And also there are a lot of areas where we have development projects that are continuing. But the issue of insecurity, it has hit this government below the belt. And I'm sure that whoever wants to fundamentally look at the issues dispassionately will tell you that this government has failed to a very large extent on the issue of insecurity. And this fellow is arising from a kind of global perspective of insecurity. There's insecurity everywhere, and therefore Nigeria should not be seen as one that is perfect, especially with developing population, with developing problems of lack of jobs and what have you, and also with the development of poverty. Therefore, this government has done to a large extent very well, which I want to believe that Matthew Kukah should have addressed, to state that, look, these are areas that this government has done very well, but there's a need for this government to also look at social issues. But coming out to state blankly, blankly, that it has woefully, the government of President Muhammadu Buhari is leaving these governors of this country far more worse than it made it. I do not agree. Because I want to believe that there are a lot of areas that we have to commend this government, and there are also a lot of areas of failures. I'm not speaking for this government, and I don't have anything to do or being paid to do this for this government, but I want to look at the issues from a very nationalistic and patriotic viewpoint, so that government as a continuum should have been able to get people that will come in 2023 to build from where the Obasanjo, Goodluck Jonathan, Yar'Adua, and Buhari stopped, so that it will move so as to check some of these fundamental problems that we've associated with the government of this country. Whether we like it or not, Buhari has made his mark.
Well,
and therefore,
there's a lot has been said already, Mr. Modibo. We are running out
the PDP should not be trusted with power, because they will sell our assets.
Final words.
The PDP should not be trusted
with power.
Said
that
because
the
they will
PDP
sell
should
our
not
assets.
Be, trusted with power because the PDP is going to sell our assets.
Well, that issue of selling the assets, let me address that, because a lot of people are concerned. Atiku wants a private sector-driven economy. This is what happens about selling assets. It's not as if you are giving away assets. You sell a company, you make a company that is run by government, now private. What that means is you want to make it more efficient so that it can be more productive, so that it can improve in terms of employment. This is the problem we have in this country. It's not only here. You have socialists who always say everything must be run by government. We have seen that it's a failure. So when you talk about privatization, what it means is that you're looking for efficiency, as we know. If it wasn't for the private sector, we would have all been eating sand today.
Okay.
The reason why we are still surviving is because of the private sector, because of the focus on efficiency and productivity.
There is a lot of questions around that one, because it was under the PDP government that the electricity sector, for instance, was privatized or decentralized, as you may want, whichever way you want to put it, and we know what we are.
It was taken over again by government people who came in and bought the shares.
So that's how do we know that the privatization from your party is going to go the way it's intended? Well, we can't really answer all the questions right now. Dr. Adetukumbo Pierce is member PDP Presidential Campaign Council and Lagos State Coordinator at Kukah Presidential Campaign Support Groups. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
As well as Ibrahim Modibo, a public affairs analyst who joins us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Ayo. Thank you, Bola.
Okay, do we have any messages from you this morning, just to see whether or not, where there are a number of
yeah,
mails?
surely we have some time for
Nonso
messages.
also, yes, has this one. Says the problem of Nigeria is neither kidnapping nor banditry nor poverty. These are symptoms. The problem of Nigeria that led to the present state of the nation is the glaring failure of our rulers to follow the rule of law. I still question that word, ruler or leader.
Well, you're going to be hearing it a lot in the coming days. This one is from Festus Akimboiwa. He says, the shooting and killing of innocent Nigerians by trigger-happy police officers is an institutional failure. Does it mean the police learned nothing from NSARS? Well, we've asked on your behalf. How long shall the criminals in police uniform continue to kill innocent citizens? Enough is enough.
Suleiman says, government needs to develop a mechanism for recurrent checking of drug abuse and mental evaluation of our security agents. The attitude of some state actors is dangerous, scary, and needs continuous scrutiny and monitoring. Citizens should feel safe in the hands of security.
And this one is from Musa Mohammed. He says, we as a nation love to talk about the problem rather than solving the problem. The simple solution to solving police brutality is making it compulsory for all officers on field to wear body cameras. Only then can we checkmate this problem.
And on Bolanle Rahim's killing, Sam Azege says, it is common knowledge that most of our security personnel operate under intense influence of intoxicating agents. Oh, wow. I suggest we should make laws banning consumption of intoxicants among our security agents. The law should be applied pre-recruitment. Wow. That's definitely something to chew on for the authorities, especially those who monitor our security agents. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
Of course, join us again throughout the week, same time. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.